We are live.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Happy Thursday. Welcome into the beginner Ruby on Rails drop party. If you've been to one of these before, you know we'll just kind of take a couple minutes to let people trickle in. Start using the chat feature within YouTube Live. I'm going to just drop in and say hey. Everyone else also drop in and say hey. I know this is such an overused prompt, but I would love to know where everyone's joining from. So go ahead and drop that in. If you're super tired of that question, you can also say why you're here, what you're excited to learn, what you're excited to do in this cute little course drop party that we're going to do together. As you may or may not know, to use the feature, the chat features on the right. I think it is for everyone. Use that throughout the entire event. I'll go through the agenda quickly so you guys kind of know what to expect. We'll wait, like I said, a couple minutes for everyone to come in. Then I'm going to ask Luan, the author of Beginner Ruby on Rails, a bunch of questions so we can learn a little bit about how he created the course, why he created it, learn about him and why he's so cool, why you should take the course, etc. And then after that's done, which I'm expecting to take around 30 minutes, we'll move into like a formal Q&A from the audience. So if you have questions throughout the event, go ahead and drop those into the chat. We'll make sure to go back and address them. But we'll have like a formal Q&A towards the end, or kind of middle towards the end of this event. And then we'll hang out and party on. Whatever time we have left, we can hang out, talk about random fun stuff. But let's see, where is everyone from? We got Kenya, Cape Cod, Amish country, Kiev.
Wow.
Russia.
Wow.
All over.
We've got two people here from Denver, Scott and I. Nice and hot and sunny, like it usually is here. And Luan's in Santa Barbara.
Yep, Santa Barbara, California.
And he says that the weather is absolutely perfect, like it is every day.
Sounds lovely, yeah.
Sounds lovely.
Yep.
How often do you go to the ocean?
How often?
Yeah.
On the weekends, normally. We have a little kid who loves the beach, and so we go a lot. I used to surf a lot, grew up surfing,
wow.
but I haven't done a whole lot of that since became a dad. But we still go to the ocean a lot.
Awesome. How old is your kid?
He is turning 2 in December.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Wow. Did he always love the ocean? My niece just went into the ocean for the first time. She's like 18 months old and she was terrified.
No, yeah, since he was a little baby, because we're so close, we would take him, and he thought it was so funny. When he was crawling, he would crawl right up to the water. The waves would hit him and like just laugh uncontrollably.
We loved
Very
it.
cute.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's in his blood.
Yeah, which I love because I love going to the beach. So.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
we just
we
spent every day at the beach last week, and our kids were like, don't get a lot of beach time here in Colorado. So they were like,
right.
Whoa, what is this? What's going on here?
It's awesome because he will stay there for as long as until he basically crashes, and which is awesome.
It's good as a parent. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, just a couple more. We have Finland, Spain, Florida, another Brazil.
Cool. Phoenix.
Wait. Very cool. All right. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. Continue to chat throughout the event. Let's dig in. Also, we'll be pinning links in the chat throughout the event. Let me quickly, because I always forget to do this. I think this is probably a good thing to start with. Since you guys are here and you've chosen to spend your time with us, we are going to allow you to enter into this raffle to win a free month of Level Up Pro. Oh my gosh, Nigeria. Awesome, guys. So yeah, I just dropped a Google form. Hopefully that works. Let me know if it doesn't. It just asks for your email and name, and at the end, or later today. We won't announce it within this event, but we'll randomly choose one person to win an entire month free of Level Up Pro, just for being here. I'll share the link again in the future in this event, but just so it's out there already. Anything else before I'm gonna dig into intros, Scott or Luan?
I don't think so. Yeah.
All right, let's get into it. So I'm Caitlin Bloom. I'm the director of marketing here at Level Up Tutorials. It's almost coming up on a year, Scott, that I've been here. I feel like
that feels so wild. Yeah.
It does feel wild because I think it was August. So I think it was August. So I've been here for almost a year.
Woo!
Yay. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun. That's just about me. Let me know if you guys want to know anything else. I'd be happy to answer it. But we're obviously here to kind of talk to and with Luan, who is a software engineer at GitHub, which is awesome. He's been doing Ruby on Rails development for 4 years, I believe, and just absolutely loves it. He adores it. He recently started making contributions to the framework and joined the issues triage team, which I want to know more about. And as we've heard, when he's not coding, he's hanging out with his family, surfing, woodworking, and just jumping around in the ocean, obviously. So is there anything else you want to say about yourself that I missed?
No, that covers it, but I can get into what the issues triage thing is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I in the past 6 months, I started contributing to Ruby on Rails, the framework. And so the triage team is basically a group of people who volunteer to watch the issues list in the Rails repository in GitHub and either, help people have steps to reproduce, help people contribute to the framework, or close issues, or just kind of help people have a good experience as they try to get their issues resolved. So This is for users of Rails. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
It's a true community type of role there, right?
Yeah, I love it. It's really nice because you get to see what people are having trouble with as they're using the framework.
Yeah,
a lot of edge cases for sure.
A world of edge cases. I'm very, very, very confident in that. Nice.
So you're pretty deep in that community. That's really cool.
Yes, yeah. That's the community I identify with the most in development, and I go to the RailsConf every year. It's really fun.
How long have you been working in Rails?
For 4 years.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've a very common thing these days with Rails shops is to use JavaScript in the front end, especially React is the most common option. And so as you're developing a feature, you're expected to do a lot of JavaScript development, and even at GitHub we have some of that too. But yeah, JavaScript, TypeScript, but Rails is really the stuff what I choose. Even if I'm going to do a side project, that's what I go for, just because I love it. Yeah. Ruby has such a vibe to it that once you start writing it, it can feel so much, I don't know, more fun than writing other languages. I remember diving into Rails and just being like, oh man, I love this language, and apprehensively had to use other languages at many points in my career. So that's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's why I love it.
Amazing. I realized that we didn't introduce you, Scott.
Oh yeah,
Scott definitely needs an introduction.
Yeah.
Does anybody not know who he is?
Yes, many people do not know who I am. My name is Scott Tolinski. I'm the owner of Level Up Tutorials. I started it 10 years ago. Caitlin, if you want to know if I'm going to remember your 1 year anniversary at Level Up, I will try. But I did not even remember that Level Up's 10-year anniversary was happening. So I'm doing my best here. So my day-to-day is developing. Level Up Tutorials is a website and recording courses and doing the Syntax podcast. So also making YouTube videos. So if you like the sound of my voice and the stuff I'm talking about, subscribe to us on YouTube, where you're watching this at this very moment. And we put out 3 weekly shows on here on YouTube, one of which is kind of up in the air, whether it's a VS Code show or You don't need a dependency. Some other things we do on Mondays. Wednesday is What is Wednesday, where we tackle all kinds of web development topics and explain them as like a what is, explain like I'm five kind of deal. And then Fridays is our Svelte show, because I'm a big Svelte user and fan. So I've dedicated each Friday to Svelte now. So that's what we're doing.
He does it all. He really does.
That's me.
Holds it all together.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, let's get into the meat of it here. So what is Ruby on Rails and why should we care about it, Luan?
Yeah. Ruby on Rails is a web framework. So Ruby is the language, Rails is the framework to help you build web applications very easily. It's been around since 2004, I believe. So it's 18 years old. It can drink in most countries. And from the very beginning, it's tried to do take away a lot of the boilerplate and a lot of the things from developers so that you can really focus on just building the application. So that's really what it is to be a Ruby on Rails developer. Is the framework takes a lot of stuff for you. It writes code for you, and you don't have to really dig into it until something goes wrong or something like that. And so I really love it. I think it's a good thing. It takes a lot of, it makes my job easier, and it's fun to dig into the details when I need to, but I don't have to do that every time. And why should you care about it? Because it's been around for this long. It, like GitHub, runs on Ruby on Rails, something that every developer uses every day, and so it's clearly a relevant tool. At RailsConf this year, RailsConf is the conference for the main conference for Rails community. Shopify, which is a behemoth company, they build everything with Ruby on Rails, and they basically said, look, at Shopify as the company, they like to think of like, what is the company going to be like in 100 years? And as they thought about that, they're like, is Ruby on Rails going to be around for 100 years? And what they said is yes, like they at least want to. And so they're making these like long-term contributions and stuff. And so it may not be, but the point being, it's still very much a relevant tool to build web applications, and it's really fun. That's why I use.
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize that too, because even in the chat, or on Syntax, we'll get comments where people are saying, is Ruby on Rails something I should be learning, or is it relevant? Is anybody still using Ruby on Rails in 2022? And the big answer is yes. A massive amount of companies not only built their stacks and committed to Rails, but a lot of companies are still building on Rails every single day and working hard on Rails. So it's a big thing that if you're looking for work and looking for a job, there's a massive amount of companies with Rails code bases who will want Rails developers to work on their applications and stacks. Not only that, but there's been a lot of additions to Rails and the Ruby web scene in general over the course of time. So definitely majorly relevant in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see a lot of companies that hire devs and then need to teach them Rails because that's their stack. So there's probably, if you already have that, you can probably get a job.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it definitely says something about a technology that like withstands the test of time. Like it's worked through, people are loving it, it's sticking around. So Luan, can you bring us through a little bit of how you chose the topics that you did for this course? A little bit of the behind the scenes of how you built it. And why?
Yeah, for sure. My goal was so I really like the Level Up Tuts format. It's usually shorter than something you'd get somewhere else, like those large courses. So it makes it really force you into like finding what really matters. And to me, that was like getting the foundation of what a Rails app is. So if you're diving into existing Rails code base, or if you needed to, start a new app with it, like what do you need to know? to at least get started, and then you can build very easily on top of that. I think that first step is usually the hardest because you have no idea what you're looking at. And for Rails, a lot of that is getting a good grasp on how Rails implements the model view controller pattern, which is a pattern that's used in different frameworks. But if you understand how Rails structures the files in a Rails app and how to navigate through them and how data flows through them, you can pretty much build anything and at least troubleshoot things and know what you know what to do. So I put in a lot of time in trying to get that done well, but also in trying to cover things that every Rails app will have. So flash messages so that you can show messages to your users, and also new things like Hotwire. Hotwire is something that just came out. It was added in the latest release of Rails, which is what Rails 7, and that's what we use for the course. And trying to cover that, there's not a whole lot of content out there for that yet because it's so new, and that's more about how. I think I don't know. I can't speak officially for Rails. It's just my opinion, but I think it's like a little bit of like how Rails tries to respond to a lot of these front end frameworks that are JavaScript based. And there's also a little bit of JavaScript too with Stimulus.js, if anyone has heard of it. If you want to build anything on the web, like if you want to build a website that's interactive and interesting, you have to write some JavaScript. And so Stimulus.js is a way to basically hook into the HTML that was rendered from the backend and do some interesting things on the browser with JavaScript. And it's meant to work really well with Rails. And so,
well, that's interesting because I had heard of Stimulus and I've been to this landing page before, but I didn't know it was included as part of Hotwire, or I honestly didn't know it was related to Hotwire. So this is pretty interesting. So Hotwire, they're saying, is Turbo, Stimulus, and then Strata. Do you know Strata?
Yeah, so Strata, so I don't know what it is. I don't think it's exactly launched yet. I think it's supposed to be a very small part of that trifecta, but what I've heard DHH say is that he regretted adding that as like part of Hotwire.
Yeah,
because it's not really necessary to make it work. Like the big things of a Hotwire don't really require that. I'm personally I'm not sure exactly what that does, but it seems like, yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting, for those of you who are out there coming from the JavaScript ecosystem, and if you haven't checked out Stimulus, check it out because their tagline is that it's a modest JavaScript framework for the HTML you already have. And those of you out there who are writing, framework heavy code might not always feel like you need to write either your whole app in the framework or that it's sometimes at odds with HTML. And this kind of you're kind of augmenting your HTML with JavaScript in a way, instead of like, all right, let me have to spin up the old JSX machine and all that stuff. So it's a pretty interesting framework to have on your radar, definitely.
Yeah, if you're coming from a framework like React, Svelte, all of those, it's a little bit of a shift in how you think about it. But as soon as it clicks, it's so fast to get things going. It's basically you're just hooking into the HTML and doing things to it. But
totally,
it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff here. And those of you who haven't worked before on Rails, you will see like there's some things about like scaffolding. And scaffolding is one of those features that has always kind of long felt absent in the ecosystem, the JavaScript ecosystem, where you're able to create large amounts of code essentially from single command line things that build out and, as it says, scaffold sections of your website. And that's something that I've always really wished that we had a better version of. So if in particular you're wondering why learn Rails, some of the scaffolding stuff in here is going to really blow your mind, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Caitlin, I actually shared a short, like it's a 2-minute video. In 2 minutes, I created just a new Rails app and scaffolded the whole thing, like the UI, the model, the database migration for like a user or something like that. And it's so simple. And to be perfectly honest, people in the Rails community say like, oh, be careful with scaffolding. But I think it's really just understanding what the scaffolding creates for you, and that's kind of what I try to do a little bit in the course here. I think it's a super useful tool. It creates all the things for you. You can just go modify to fit your needs.
Yeah, I've like considered making scaffolding tools like 3 or 4 times for my own code base, and then been like, this may be too much work. So it's one of those things you'd be happy to have.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But it's cool because, oh, sorry, Caitlin, you were gonna.
No, go ahead.
Okay, it's cool that because Rails has that built in, if you actually do pull in a different dependency, like for example, a very common thing to do in a Rails app, it comes with a standard testing library called Minitest, but a lot of people choose to pull a different one called RSpec. And so people will do that as soon as they create the Rails app. And because you can actually create your own generator, so you pull in RSpec, and when you do the scaffolding generation, because RSpec hooks into all of those Rails generators, it will actually create all of the test scaffolding for you using the RSpec. So it's really nice for the whole ecosystem. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and for the course, the whole thing is just Ruby on Rails. There's no other dependencies at all.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's always great to know. That's like the course maker's nightmare is releasing a course and having the version update the next day or something on some obscure dependency here.
Yeah.
So what prerequisites do people need, or what kind of knowledge do they need to have before coming into this course, if any?
Yeah. I mean, if you're a JavaScript developer, I'd hope that you'd be able to dive in pretty quickly. It's hard for me because I've been writing Ruby for so long that I don't know how much of it is going to go over your head if you don't know any Ruby whatsoever. So you might need to pause and just look up what's like that syntax of what I'm doing, but hopefully it's pretty straightforward. So like just an experience with a different programming language, I would hope that would be enough.
Yeah. And one thing about Ruby, for those of you who haven't been writing a lot of Ruby, it's a very easy language to read by comparison to many other languages. It's very English based. So you do get a lot of like being able to read it isn't super difficult especially if you have any experience with another programming language.
Yeah, very little parentheses and very little curly braces, and
Love to hear that. So there might be a little overlap in this question in a previous one, but what will people really learn and what will they build? What kind of skills will they walk away having after taking this course?
Yeah. So throughout the course, we build a Rails application. The Rails so at the time I was planning my son's birthday party, and so it's an event app. So basically you can create events, you can RSVP to them, you can sign up as a user. So just like little things like that. And I basically just use that it really is just as a way to introduce all of the features and all of the things. So by the end of it, I would hope that you understand how to, if you join a new Rails code base, you'd know how to navigate that, know how to what to do, what to search through, what matters, what doesn't, how data flows through the application, how the model view controller works in Rails, and you'd be able to keep extending that. In fact, I created some issues so I created a repository where we built our app, and I created some issues that if anyone's interested to keep building on with suggestions of things to build on top of. That's something I've had issues with in the past with other courses. You don't know what to do next. So some of them I already wrote the test for, so you just have to write the feature and make the test pass, and some of them you have to do the whole thing. But that's the idea. Hopefully that covers it.
Nice.
Cool. Sounds fun. So let's think a little bit more like real world experience type stuff. What are some of the biggest benefits of knowing Ruby and Ruby on Rails and real world applications? How is this going to make people stand out in a pool of applicants?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the job, if you're looking for a job, and there's a, like we were saying earlier, there's a lot of places that are Ruby on Rails shops. If you have the skills already, you'll definitely stand out over that if that's something that you're interested in. I think that um, as someone who has written a lot of JavaScript and had to Google, oh, how do like people do this in JavaScript, and it's the first answer is normally a library. It's really nice seeing what it's like to not have that world, like to be just like, how do you do that in Rails? And people will say like, oh, you just use this built-in method, or you use this whatever. And I personally really enjoyed that, and so that's just kind of more of a, personally as a developer, I think it's nice to learn how that's the case, and how you can try to do more of that. But really, I think it's another tool in your tool belt. I don't want to claim that it's better, because it works differently for different people, and so I personally just love it, and I think that there's a lot of jobs out there. There are Rails job boards that I can share, and there's always tons of companies looking for Rails developers.
Yeah, I mean, massive amount of companies built their stack on Rails, and many of those companies are some of the most massive web presences online. If you just look at the list of who uses Rails.
Yeah, and it's because of that. It's a very Rails at the beginning maybe wouldn't scale to like work for a Shopify today or a GitHub, but because these companies have committed to it and they are contributing back to the framework, it's a framework that you can go from. I think that's the Rails tagline now. It's like from zero to IPO, something like that.
Perfect tagline.
It's very clickbaity, but I think that there's definitely truth to that, and a lot of the features that Rails gets are things that these companies like GitHub or Shopify or others or Basecamp built internally, and then they just basically contribute back. So, for example, very large features like multiple database support. So if you have like multiple database clusters, like if you're doing that, like you're already at a certain level, and Rails supports that natively. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it makes sense that there would be so many, like, because there are so many massive companies using Rails. You'd have to imagine that just about all of the tooling and anything you could possibly want is out there and exists, because even in the short time that the Node world has kind of been around, there's been a ton of stuff produced, but Rails has so much bigger players around it. So yeah, that's got to be great.
Yeah, I mean, it really says a lot. All of the companies you're popping into the chat here, Scott, it's so impressive. It says a lot.
Yeah.
Just alone, like that's all you need. If you guys need any more convincing, companies that are using Ruby on Rails. So Luan, in your perspective, what are some of the coolest things you can do with Ruby on Rails, or some of either the coolest or your favorite?
Yeah, I think my favorite thing to do is my favorite thing, like that it baffles me every time, is how easy it. So when you're creating a web application, a lot of it is based on a relationship-based database, right? So like you have relationships between all of your different database models, and Rails makes it so easy. Specifically in this case, it's called Active Record, so which is the ORM that Rails comes with it built in, makes it so easy to manage all of those. So you can easily create a migration for your database with, again, just a command line tool, and you will generate the tables for you and everything, and then you just go into your model file and you just say you have a model called human. This is where I think it would be probably easier to just share my screen real quick.
Cool.
Yeah.
Can I try that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's just try. So increase the font size. So if you have a model here, model here called human, and don't worry, the course is in VS Code.
You're frighten people with your vimming.
And you have a model called dog. So this is how you'd basically create different objects. These are just Ruby objects that represent these, not model, it's class, obviously. So this is just basically ways to represent. There's going to be a database for humans and a database for dogs. And all I have to do here is just say has many dogs, and Copilot already knows I want to do that. And that's all you need to do. And now you can start doing things like Scott equals human.new, Scott.dogs.create name. What's your dog's name, Scott?
Lucy.
There you go. And now I can just say Scott.dogs, and it will return an array of dogs. And it's just so easy. Like basically just adding that has many adds a lot of methods to the human instance that I can now play with and do things very easily. And it just makes it super easy to work with.
Yeah. And those of you who ever worked in any sort of relational data would definitely be able to know the significance of that offhand. And if you haven't, just know that doing relationships and most things aren't a ton of fun overall.
Yeah. So it's really nice. And and from that, it just keeps building. But like just the simplicity of just saying has many. And then I can also say on the dog, I can say belongs.
Oh, hey, Luan, can you bump up your font size just a little bit here? Maybe I'm going to give it a couple more.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Thanks. And then I can, it wants to do owner here because you can do, it's probably would be the right way to do it. But just for the sake of the demo, you can say belongs to human. And then now I can also go, dog find by name Lucy, and then get its owner. So it just makes it so easy, so simple, and so fun. So that's what I like about it. I think that this is the perfect example of how Rails takes away all of the boilerplate from you. So you can just focus on the application. Yeah,
totally. I know me personally, I do a lot of annoying back-end data stuff, and I often wish I didn't have to do it. So you're making me jealous over here that you get to do, Rails style data relations, and yeah.
They should probably just change their tagline to easy, simple, fun.
Easy, simple, fun. Yeah, that's good.
Why not?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm all for it. Yeah.
All right. So, with my marketing hat on, I like to ask this question. Who is this course good for? Who do you recommend it for?
Yeah, I had two specific audiences in mind when I was designing it. One was as there are not enough Rails developers out there, we end up hiring people who don't have Rails experience to now be a full-time Rails developer. And so I wanted to build something that I could give it to them and say like, hey, here, watch this. You should have enough to start digging in and go from there. Like it should be like a foundation kind of thing, because there is other content out there, but it's pretty dense. It's kind of hard to say like, hey, here you go, learn all of this stuff. And so that's first audience. The second one is just I've seen a lot of people who are out there taking tutorials, JavaScript, Python, trying different things, and nothing's really sticking. Ruby is I think a lot of these languages, they all have their pros and cons, but at the end of the day, if you find something that works really well for you, like it's how your brain works and it clicks, I think that it makes just working so much more fun. And that's what Ruby is for me. And so if there's someone out there who's just like struggling through different languages or different frameworks and nothing is really clicking for them, try it out, and maybe that's what will make sense. Those were the two that I was thinking.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like Ruby on Rails is really like, it's sticky, right? Like it's sticking around. It's easy to get into. You want people to just kind of gravitate towards it. And this course sounds like a really great place to get people up and running and learn all the basics that they need to dive into this world that obviously has a lot of demand and not enough supply. Cool. Is there anything that I missed that you wanted to touch on before we start taking questions from the audience?
No, I think we covered a lot. Yeah, I'm pretty happy to take more questions then. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's see if there's any that we missed up kind of towards the beginning of the chat.
Yeah, there's always a bit of a delay here. So those of you, if you have a question, now is a good time to get that question in so we can see it nice and early. We'll maybe fill some time here with who knows what while the questions inevitably come pouring in.
A lot of people are wondering like what kind of apps can be made using this framework, desktop, mobile, etc.
Yes, it is primarily a web framework. So it can, because it all lives on the server, there's a way to create Rails apps that are API only. So if you do Rails new --API, it will only generate the APIs for you. The scaffolding generators will only do the API stuff. So if you want to do a Rails backend and Svelte front end, you can. But one of the things that with Turbo, which we go into, which is part of Hotwire, some of the ideas was to try to create a lot of the stuff that you could also use in a mobile. So, Hey, I don't know if you all have heard of it. I think it's come up on Syntax before. It's an email app created by the folks at Basecamp, who are very tied to Rails, and they basically try to do as much as possible. They still have native like iOS, Android, and desktop developers, but they try to get as much of the work done in Rails as possible. So it does all of the modeling, all of the server side, but I think it also does some of the UI. I don't know the specifics of it, but it sounds like with Turbo, you can start doing a little bit of more native stuff, and you can actually show some. I personally don't do a whole lot of that, so I can't speak to the details. Primarily a web framework.
Yeah. I don't do a whole lot of that either myself.
Cool. This is from Tater Tots. Hi. What kind of hosting does a project in Ruby on Rails like this require? Can you just deploy to Netlify, or is it more involved?
Yeah, so as actually a part of the course, we actually deploy our app to Heroku for free. So Heroku is the easiest way to deploy a Rails app. It's super simple. I think that's kind of Heroku's motto, is to just make it as easy as possible. So that's simple. I'm not sure you can do it on Netlify. I can look it up later and just get back to you on that. But a lot of people do that on a Droplet, on a DigitalOcean. Droplet 2 is a very common choice for people to do. And there are things that make it easier to, like, there's a project called, I believe, Hatchbox, that I think makes it easier for you to deploy your Rails app to DigitalOcean or other providers, AWS and stuff. But Heroku is by far the easiest. It takes one episode to do it. And
nice. Heroku also built on Rails, right? I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe I could.
It's at least Ruby.
It's at least Ruby. Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's Rails. That's a good question.
Yeah. We had another question from Isaac Lopez. He says, "Why is there so little opportunities for trainees or junior in Rails? Is that something that you've noticed yourself? Do you feel that way, or have you seen otherwise? Because I have seen a lot of job openings for Rails personally, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not in the landscape enough."
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's true. Like I follow a lot of people from the community on Twitter, and it sounds like that's a shared concern too, of like trying to find. I think that there are a lot of senior roles open. I think I don't know like why that is. I think that I've worked with people who are brand new to Rails. There is a boot camp out of Denver, actually. What is it called? I forget the name now. But they people who graduate from that are amazing, like Rails devs for a boot camp. But for someone who like just learned to code, I've had great experience working with them. Our previous company hired a lot of people from that.
Is it Turing?
Turing, yes, It is Turing. Yeah, thank you. And I had a great experience working with multiple people from that school, and so I don't know why that is. I think it can be unfortunate. What I've seen is that also is across the industry. I think that there's a lot more senior roles than junior for everything, not just Rails.
Yeah,
I think Rails is just part of it, but yeah, we at GitHub we do hire junior developers. Is a lot of them are out of college and stuff too. It's just the volume is lower compared to senior for sure.
Yeah, I would imagine someone who has good web fundamentals too. If you have good web fundamentals and then you're applying for that Rails job and you have Rails knowledge, I bet that just gets you one step closer.
You're not junior is like brand new. I think that you can get like they normally call it SD2 and stuff, which is like the next level if you already have some web fundamentals.
Richard asks, what does the job landscape look like for legacy code versus new projects? Like if you're applying for jobs, is there a lot of new projects out there, or is it mostly like big apps that have been around for a bit?
Yeah, the majority of the jobs will be from apps that have been around for a bit. And so the level at which they've been keeping their, they call it monolith. I think that's a pretty common word to describe your Rails application. It varies a lot. I do see new companies coming up with Rails. I see like at RailsConf, there are people who are starting out companies and they're hiring. They're normally they just tend to be smaller. It's just that there are these behemoths that run on Rails and they just tend to hire a lot more people. But what's exciting is like the companies we keep bringing up, like Basecamp and Shopify. Like we upgrade Rails every week, and so like we are always as close to the to the trunk, so like to the latest release as we can be. We're always bumping our commit. So it's fun to work at a company like GitHub, where you are, even though it's been around for a long time and it is a legacy code base, you're still like using the latest version of the framework and you're getting to innovate and do things like that.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I think that
old code doesn't necessarily mean, or even not old code, but old code bases don't necessarily mean that you're not up to date or on the latest.
Exactly. Yeah. I think those are starkly different, because like, sure, if it's an older code base, you will have some tech debt and you will have those kinds of things. But like if you've kept up to date, I think you can still, it's easier to just innovate and to do that, which that's what I see at GitHub at least. Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Caitlin, I just kind of jumped in and started taking questions.
Keep on going. You're doing great. Keep on going. It is fun to see. There's a lot of people in here that are really excited about this content. They're really excited to dig in. They already want more. They're like, when's our next Ruby on Rails course?
Nice, yeah. I figured we'd see how the response was, and I'd be happy to. I had a blast doing it, and just for full disclosure, it's something I had already been thinking about, But you know what it is when you're doing something like at night and you have a kid and you're just like, oh, like, am I going to do this? But I loved, then the author program came out and I was like, this is the perfect thing to give me a deadline and have to deliver. And
Yeah.
I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you did incredible. You really have a presence. You speak so articulately. You're really fun to be in this digital room with, and being, you know, on the receiving end of the videos. You do great. Everyone should go check it out. You can do the first 5 tutorials of this course for free too. So always, you can ease it and see if you like the one yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know who won't, you know. He's a cool.
You're too kind.
Are there any other questions that we're seeing?
I didn't see any other questions. Some comments.
There's one about, have you ever used Inertia.js?
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I have not used. I've heard a lot about it. I've heard really good things, and it's basically a way, the way that I hear people using it is a way to use Rails with a front-end JavaScript framework like React or Svelte. And so it tries to basically be that glue. And I hear it from what I hear. So this is not like from my experience. It's the best way to basically accomplish that. It's difficult to do because Rails works best when you're doing everything within the framework. So things as simple as a CSRF token, right, for authentication, for authenticating, or like form submissions and things like that. Now all of a sudden, if your forms are being submitted from Svelte or from now you have to like basically write code to glue that in. You kind of lose some of those niceties from Rails. But for people who want to create, like who want to have their front end developers kind of create things differently and separately from it, I hear it's actually on my list of things to try out because I've heard really good things. I think that it's also very popular in the Laravel community. So for PHP.
Yeah, I was seeing some PHP on the site. I heard the word svelte and I got very interested.
Yeah, that's so like back to the previous question, I've seen some new companies come in with that stack of Rails, Inertia, Svelte as like a stack that's getting more popular.
I'll have to keep my eyes on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to see the commentary and hear. It seems like people are picking up on the fact that it might be a competitive landscape for people to get into, since supply and demand's a little uneven right now. You know, there's talk of like, oh, so you can go in and request maybe a higher salary. There are so few Ruby on Rails developers. So it does
definitely
sound
well-paid developers.
We love that. We obviously love that. So Luan, you had shared with me that you are also kind of a self-taught developer, correct?
Yes, that's right.
I always think that's really cool that a lot of our authors come from that journey, that kind of route into programming. And I think it's also a beautiful thing because you obviously consumed a lot of online tutorials, like you said, from Level Up tutorials, West Boss, Code Academy, etc. And so I'm sure that the content that you created is kind of through this lens and through this perspective of, I consumed a lot of content like that. Do you feel like it's really shaped your teaching style?
Yes, 100%. I'm always aware of that, and I try to emulate as much as possible, like the positive things that I've seen, and also avoid some of the pitfalls that I've seen. Where I think that my biggest problem when I was learning was, and I think I hear that people ask about that on syntax a lot too, and I've had friends ask me about this, is getting distracted. There's so many things going on in development that you don't know what to focus on. You're learning JavaScript and then React, and then you want to deploy it through Kubernetes, and you're like, what is important here? What's that? And so that's why I try to make it as focused as possible on really the stuff that matters, and you can build on top of it later, and really and also try to have some fun exercises at the end. It was always something that I missed from tutorials because I didn't really know what to do after. I played around, but it was not as exciting as like having a almost like homework kind of thing, you force yourself.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of huge.
definitely did.
100% rather do courses and tutorials from people who have been through a lot of them and know what is annoying and what doesn't work.
That's why I started Level Up. I was really annoyed with the YouTube landscape at the time. There was only like 2 or 3 channels, and it's like all these people have bad audio. I gotta get on that. Yeah.
You're really a pioneer, Scott.
Thank you.
Kudos to you. Yeah.
It feels like I was really late to it too. So that goes to show you're just never too late. Because you're saying, if you say that, I'm like, man, I was probably about 5 or 6 years too late on it. But
here you are, Luan. You're contributing. I know you're pretty proud of this course and be able to contribute. We're really honored that you've chosen to contribute to Level Up Tutorials.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm very grateful. Thank you for the opportunity. I love it. Yeah, it's very nice.
Oh, that's amazing. Are there any other questions coming in? I dropped the 3 links that I want you guys to see. They're up a little bit, but again, I linked the amazing course. Go do it. Love it, enjoy it, give us feedback. Oh yeah, Scott's pinning them for us.
I can only pin one at a time though.
Okay, there you go. Okay. Yeah, there's the course, the link to our Discord. If you're not already in there, we have a good time. Also a good place to get your questions answered. There is a new channel that Scott just popped up for people to chat about Ruby and Ruby on Rails and Rails. and then finally, do that Google form. It's 3 questions. We won't use your information for anything other than maybe reaching out to you to tell you that you won the month free of Level Up Tutorials. Twizzlers or Red Vines?
Twizzlers.
I'm
trying to think.
I've never liked Red Vines. I'm sorry for the Red Vine folks.
I like Twizzlers. I specifically like the Twizzlers that you like peel.
Yeah, like because they're like strawberry flavored or something. They're better.
Yeah,
they taste better.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you.
Yeah.
The peel Twizzlers.
I'm with you. What about everyone else here?
It's candy, right? Like
yes.
Those are not in Brazil. I don't
it's candy.
I don't think I've ever had that either of those.
In the most American way possible, a friend of mine used to buy like giant tub of them. They're like this big, full of tub of Red Vines, and just like always pulling one out, and it's just like, oh man, I can't do that. That's too many Red Vines for me.
I think we always had that at the office when we used to work at the office, and I remember just like what, and
what
it's just
that?
like because I didn't grow up with that, so I just never really. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you know what some of the like more popular candies in Brazil is?
Yeah, mostly chocolate. So they sell these more than anything else. They sell these like boxes. There's a brand called Lacta, and it's basically just an assortment of different chocolates, and that's still like every time my mom comes or I go, I just bring lots of those boxes. It's my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm down.
Yeah, all different kinds, and a lot of white chocolate, which is different.
I'm a white chocolate fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
White chocolate. Wow, that's fun. The Tater Tots, who asked the question, said that we chose the right answer, and he won't cancel his subscription to Level Up Tutorials. Thank goodness. We have one more question that came in. Let's answer that, and then we can kind of close out. Any recommendations on places to get familiar with Ruby before taking this course?
Yeah, the way I learned like Ruby was Code Academy. That's the website where it has a built-in editor on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, there is a little prompt. It explains a little bit and says, "Hey, write this stuff in and then press run." It's very quick to get through, but it gives you all of the basics that you need to jump in. It covers all of the bases. So that's normally what I recommend to people at work or anywhere. Quick, and it really is covers everything you really need to know. Everything else you just built out of Stack Overflow and you learn.
Yeah, I think I did it. The what's it called? Code Academy on Ruby too. It was really nice.
Yeah, and it's free. I hope it's still free, but
Yeah,
it
it's
was
free.
when I took
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like it was really nice.
Sick.
That's all that I have. Any closing remarks from either of you?
No closing remarks.
I just remember one fun fact about Ruby on Rails is I believe the creator of Ruby on Rails trademarked it because he didn't like Rails, because he didn't want people creating like JavaScript on Rails or like other things on Rails, because and it's something that's very unique about Ruby. Just Rails is like built for Ruby kind of thing, and so it's a very unique thing. I thought it was funny when I heard that.
I love that. He's like, no one can take this.
Yeah.
Because people have tried
Mark branding.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah, very much branding. Mm-hmm.
It is really memorable.
Yeah, it is.
Cool. Well, everyone go take the course. It's amazing. We need more developers in that world. You can make a bunch of money. Be like Luan.
Working at GitHub.
Yeah, we work at GitHub. Here you go. And all those amazing companies. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you again for creating this beautiful course. Thanks for hanging out. How can people get in touch with you if they want to chat your ear off about this?
Yeah. You can reach out to me on Twitter. It's Luan Ziba is my LUAN. It's the same as my GitHub handle. Like this. I shared it on the
Here, I'll put it in
Zoom chat. Feel free to send me a DM and I'd be happy to answer. Yeah.
Sick.
Cool. Awesome. Scott, do you think you could put that in the chat?
Yes.
For some reason,
yes. Cool.
Amazing. Thanks again. I hope everyone has a good rest of your day, night.
Wherever, yeah.
It's Friday for some people. Jealous. Again, thank you, Luan. Thanks, Scott. And everyone have a good time. Peace out.
Everybody have a good time.
Thanks for hanging out.